King Kong, 10 times as big as a man.
And let's see what happens. So, hello everyone, I am Bill Worcester, aka Zazubaar. It is the Addendum of Kong 4. Yep. No, it's the Addendum of Kong 3, yep.
Because you decided to move Skull Island, so now our timetables are all fucked up.
No, well, I fucked up because the way this has to count is it's the Mighty Kong, the first one we did. Then it's the 60s show, then this one, then Skull Island. So yeah, this is 3. My bad. So today, doesn't matter what the number is, we're doing the 90s Kong cartoon. We've already talked quite a bit about this show, though. We did commentaries...
I see, this is where I'm confused. You keep referring to this as the 90s Kong show. But all the sources I look at seem to tell me that it's from the early 2000s.
What year specifically? It didn't start in 99?
Well, my book says 2000 to 2001 was the original run.
I was under the assumption that it started in 99. So it was produced in 99. It has a very 90s feel. That's why I refer to it as such. But yeah, it's from the early 2000s. Like, that's a super technicality, though.
Well, everything from the year 2000 kind of feels like 99, doesn't it? I can kind of attest to that.
Well, it doesn't feel like 90. It still feels like the whole 90s. It just still has that feel because we weren't out of that era yet, really. We were all still in that era. So it still feels like a 90s cartoon. But anyway, so you're only familiar with this show through the movies that we watched in the week of Kong, right?
I have vague memories of catching an episode or two on TV a long time ago.
What do you remember? What do you remember? Like, do you remember liking it?
I pretty much just remember the way Kong looked in it. Mm-hmm. That's the only memory that I walked away from that with. So, yeah, I don't really have an impression of it. And then we watched those movies, and boy, those were awful.
Yeah.
Particularly the CG one.
Mm-hmm. The design on Kong and the 2D one, though, what do you think of that, going back to it?
It's weird, because the 3D movie might have had a slightly more interesting plot, really, but it was just so hard to look at.
There was more happening in that movie, but it was just... The first movie also had, like, a story that was more about, like, the mythos. So that was at least a little more interesting. And there was, like, cyborg dinosaurs in it. That was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So there were things in that movie that I liked, but it didn't come together into anything, really.
There were also, though, a few too many musical numbers.
Yeah, well, I think that was the thing that really made it, like, a laugh out loud, unbearably funny bad. But this, like, that movie is more in line with the show than the other one is, and that's why I think I felt more positively about it, because this show, I loved it when I was young. I liked it a little more even than Godzilla the series, although looking back on it, Godzilla the series is definitely better by quite a bit. It's just of a higher quality standard. The production team was better, bigger budget.
Poor Kong, he just can't ever outdo Godzilla when it comes to animated series. Huh?
I mean, except I'm kind of glad that Kong had the better movie recently when it came to Legendary's American versions of like modern big budget versions of these characters, like, because yeah, in recent years, like, Godzilla's been trouncing Kong, so it's nice to have Kong get a victory of late. But this show, still good. For the time and for the age it was intended for, it's pretty solid, pretty entertaining, and it was a good at having an overarching story, which is something that these kids' animated series sort of struggle with. It's not ridiculous, but it's still amusing, and it does an interesting thing with the King Kong mythos that nothing else I had seen done before, in terms of cloning him and genetically modifying him to be half humans that way. Presumably you could control him more and tame him better, I guess, is the idea there. They don't explain why exactly they clone him to be half human, but we'll find out when we watch it. So the idea here is to watch the 2-part pilot, The Return, parts 1 and 2, and then we're gonna watch the last episode, or at least what I think is supposed to be the last episode, which is the 13th Stone. So we're gonna watch those two. We're gonna watch those 3 episodes. That'll roughly work out to about 60 minutes. That'll be about an hour or so. That'll work out for our purposes. So that'll also give us an effective, kind of overview of the show, I think, because it's an overarching story, like I said. So we'll get the very beginning and the very end, and we can fill in the blanks, because we're adults, this is a kid's show, and we should be able to do that. Otherwise, we're fucking idiots. Do you agree, Dylan?
Yeah. Did you say the 13th Stone is the last episode?
I think it's supposed to be, even though the last episode that's listed is Interview with a Monkey.
Yeah.
I think the actual storyline, the 13th Stone, is the last episode, though. I'm pretty sure Interview with a Monkey is just a side thing that's not the big cataclysmic plot is happening.
Gotcha. It's like in DBZ when right after the arc ends, there's just a random episode of the characters hanging out.
I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. Yeah.
I see.
So we'll get into that in a few minutes. So I think the best way for you to do this at home is to get the episodes all booted up, just play them all, and just try to line them as best up with us as you can. We're watching them in our own way, so you'll have to get them going in your own way. Should we do a press and play for each episode individually, do you think?
Yeah, probably it would be a good idea, just so that the audience can sync up as best that they can.
Okay. So we'll do that then. We'll leave in the press play in 1, 2, 3, just to keep the sync up as close as we can. So, are you ready to go?
Yeah.
You got it all booted up?
Yep, I'm at 0.
Okay.
There.
So everybody at home, press play for Kong, the animated series, The Return, Part 1, in 3, 2, 1, play. So the idea here, D, is that King Kong is a clone of the original Kong, mixed with human DNA. As a method to continue the franchise, do you think that works?
Sure.
I don't think you need the mix with human DNA.
No, that's a weird element, but the idea of cloning Kong certainly works. I like that they, decided to keep the events of the 33 movie in canon.
Well, we saw when we got to that CG movie that it's not strictly the 33 movie, although I like to imagine that this show had more of a version of the 33 movie in mind when they made it. Because there's a poster we'll see in a few minutes that it looks like something Carl Denham would have made, back in the 30s for his show. I always thought that was a weird choice to have a real gorilla behind the title. This first pilot probably also has the best animation of the whole series. They put the most effort into it, but that's usually the case with these kid shows anyway.
Not just animation either. You remember how much better the first episode of Jew Ranger looks than most of what comes after it,
Well, a lot more happens in that.
That show really pulls out the stops for the big event episodes, and then the rest of it is, basically the Power Rangers formula.
It's just chasing monsters around gardens and shit, yeah. I guess the idea behind giving him half human DNA is that he's more easy to tame then, you can communicate with him more.
I guess.
He might even be more intelligent then. I don't know, though. So, D, what happened here? Why is this a thing?
You're asking me?
Well, you read the article, the paragraph on it in your book. So what did that tell you?
Oh, I mean, it didn't tell me why this was a thing. It just was hey, this was a thing.
All right. Well, I have a better idea then. So a bunch of Canadians and a bunch of Americans were like, hey, TriStar and Sony are making a lot of money with Godzilla right now on television and animation. So, in similar ways to how Warner Brothers reacted when they made their Mighty Kong movie, this company, who had the animated rights to Kong on television for some reason, I don't know why, they decided to do their own version, which is the formula of Godzilla the series, where every episode Kong fights some mutant monster thing, and he travels around the world solving all kinds of crises, thwarting terrorist threats, as we're seeing right now. So it was all done in response to the popularity of Godzilla following Godzilla the series. So that's why this is a thing. What's
going on here? Why is this Foot Clan ISIS-looking guy? What is he doing here? Like, is he after Kong? Is he after?
He has no idea that she's cloned Kong. That's a big surprise. He is after the Primal Stones, which are on Skull or Kong Island, as it's called in this, which are like these primeval elemental forces that can control time and space and the entire universe. And he wants access to them because he wants to rule the world. And he thinks that she knows where they are, which she does. Or at least she knows where the island is, where they are. And now that he knows Kong is back, he knows that it's going to be a lot harder to get them, because Kong, in this continuity, is the elemental mystical guardian of the Primal Stones. That's sort of his whole deal.
Such a weird and elaborate setup for a King Kong cartoon.
Yeah, like there's a lot of drama going on, as you'll see.
You would assume that all you would need to do to set up a King Kong cartoon is have somebody shipwrecked on the island, and then fucking they learn about Kong, and then you just have weekly adventures. But instead they do this whole thing with, like, cloning and magical stones.
Well, it depends on what you're doing with it. If you just do a total reboot, and you just have, like, Skull Island never be discovered and they crash land there, fine, then yeah, you can even set the whole thing on Skull Island, or at least part of it. Just like adventures going through the entire island. But, you know, this show has Kong be an established thing, and he's died, so he has to be brought back. You have to, you know, answer that Deus Ex Machina, you know?
You could still have a scientist who's cloned Godzilla. She wouldn't have to be the like grandmother of the main character. Is that what she is to him? I don't know.
Yeah, she is his grandma. Why is that a problem, though?
No, I'm just saying you wouldn't necessarily have to do that. I don't know. It just seems very elaborate. Is what I'm ultimately getting at.
I see.
Like the setup to Godzilla the series is a lot simpler, right? Like the movie happened. Nick Topolopoulos finds the egg under the city. It hatches. Baby Godzilla grows up.
Well, it also importantly imprints on him. The other thing is they had to find a reason for Kong to have a bond with the kid, so they decided to make it that they're biologically brothers.
You could even do an imprinting thing on this show if you wanted to. What if you kind of did? What if you kind of remade Son of Kong? Have somebody go to the island and they find the baby Kong, and then the baby Kong imprints on them, or something. I don't know.
I would say you do it more like how Skull Island did it, where you just do a full reboot. They stumble across a young Kong on a Skull Island, and then you just go from there. You don't need all of this complex setup. I agree. But again, they did all of this to make it more like Godzilla the series, to make it feel like it's a sequel to a grander mythology, you know, that they have nothing to do with.
I guess.
What do you think of muscular, rich friend with pizza in the trunk?
I seem to remember liking him in that movie. So
yeah, he was one of my favorite. He was one of my favorite parts of the show. Because this guy on the right is mostly pretty unbearable, as he mostly serves.
He is freakishly large, isn't he?
He is. He's pretty big.
This guy looks more like Kong.
You know who he is? He's like a Ben Grimm type.
He looks more like Kong than Kong does. He reminds me of that one villain from the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. You remember
Hun.
Hun, the big muscular guy that hang out with Shredder.
Yeah, the leader of the Purple Dragons. Yeah.
I always preferred Tatsu from the movie, but whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hun didn't really like the Shredder. He was that was sort of like a raw deal for him, so he got out of that as soon as he could.
It's true. That was like a Starscream Megatron situation.
Yeah.
And then in that movie, he got mutated.
See, look,
into a big turtle.
did you see the King Kong poster?
Yeah.
Aren't you
Wish it had
riveted?
been in color.
Oh, by the way, Dylan, guess who the bad guy is?
This guy,
Yeah.
Clayton from Tarzan.
Yeah. Clayton.
Not Clayton. God, that fucking level in Kingdom Hearts. I spent so fucking long trying to beat that stupid giant chameleon.
I never
You ever play
played.
Kingdom Hearts?
No, I never did.
Oh God.
I had self-respect when I was a kid. No.
Clayton turns out to be this giant chameleon monster, and he's really hard to beat.
What?
Well,
Was it actually Clayton, or did a weird chameleon monster replace Clayton T-1000 style?
yeah, what it is it's one of the Heartless. See, these creatures called the Heartless are kind of infecting.
The Heartless, a.k.a. fucking girls. Ah! No, this is...
No, yeah, they're kind of hard to explain, and partially because I don't remember it all that well. But they're like
Partially
Heartless
because it
have,
doesn't matter, yeah.
they've like infected all these different Disney dimensions, and so they like pop up all over the place, and like I don't know. It's a fun game though.
I love how she's like, okay, guys, I'm going to give you this high-tech experimental technology to get you to the island, whereas I could just give you a map. like Carl Denham had in the original.
I'd love a Kong animated series that's like a sequel to 76, ignoring King Kong lives.
But one where he still
bring-
survives.
You bring King Kong back to life in a similar way to what you did with King Kong Lives, but then I don't know, you just do something different with him.
Do you have it be like a Frankenstein thing, where he's like improved as like he's like cybernetically brought back to life, or is he just like he's been healed?
Or you could do a clone thing like this show did. I mean, that would be fun.
Yeah, I guess. But at that point, it's like, why even bother making it a sequel to 76? Then, well, I guess it's because then you make him closer to when cloning starts to be a thing. It might be interesting if you did like a half Jurassic Park, half King Kong story, where it's like, instead of a whole island of dinosaurs, it's just Kong. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know how
know what
you
I
make
hope?
it. I don't know how you make it different from Jurassic Park, though. Is the thing. I was like, oh, there's a giant monkey on this island. Oh no, the power's off. Oh shit, what are we gonna do now?
I'd like to go back to that version of Skull Island and introduce some more big creatures that they didn't have the budget for in 76.
Well, then what I think you do in order to do that is, instead of doing what I just suggested, the island that you have them put them on is Skull Island from 76.
They just take him back to his natural habitat.
Yeah, which I think would be cool. And they set up like a base there or whatever, and then you can reveal that there were other things on the island. You can reveal that they were like big reptiles, like living in caves in the mountains or whatever. Like the snakes were up in the mountains. Like maybe there were like fucking iguana-like things or big crocodiles or something. I don't know.
Okay, so this is already miles ahead of the last animated series because we have characters being chased by a T-Rex right now, and that's always good fun.
Yeah. What I also like that this series like addresses that's really funny is they're like, how the hell are there Jurassic, Cretaceous, and Ice Age era animals all living together on one island? This is fucking impossible. But because of the Skull Island that we're usually familiar with, where it's like any and all prehistoric life, including Kong himself, you know, you sort of need that. So to address it is just kind of funny, and you hang a lantern on it.
Yeah.
So far, this is definitely better than the last show.
I've always liked my my personal fan theory that King Kong takes place in the same universe as Disney's Dinosaur, and the land that the dinosaurs migrated to at the end of broke away and became Skull Island, and then Kong descended from the little love monkeys.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense.
I just want a version of Kong who pops up on camera and goes, "I'm the love monkey."
That I love, where it's like he stumbles into him and Kong's just like pissed and he's just taking down this T-Rex. Like, that's awesome.
This is the first time he's seen Kong since he was a little child.
Yes, because after the terrorists came, his grandmother left Jason to be raised, and go to school in a normal setting, and Kong to be left on the island where he belongs. So they haven't seen each other since Jason started going to school.
I see.
Which has realistically probably been like 6 or 7 years, I would imagine. Because I imagine like he did all of his elementary learning like homeschooled, like on the island, but then like when he turned like 12, he probably went to middle school and shit, and high school.
Doing the whole brother bond between the two characters is a nice way to have a Kong personal relationship with the human without doing the whole "he wants to bang this chick" thing.
Or it's like a creepy pedophilia thing like in the last cartoon.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Giving an actual sort of brotherly bond.
Well, that's why I think the cloning. That's why I'm okay with like the making him half human thing, and why I can see why it's a good idea. Here's what's not a great idea. There's one Skull Islander. She's the shaman who protects Kong. Why is she the only one?
I don't think you need the half human thing, because you could just have them raised together and achieve the same brother bond. But
would they though? I guess if Kong was like from birth, like that's the one thing that's kind of interesting. Is like I guess you would have to introduce the idea of like, oh, we have artificial wombs like in the 90s or whatever. Because that's what you would need. Like, what are you going to have, an actual gorilla birth Kong? Like, you can't do that. You'd have to have an artificial womb do it. In Jurassic Park, you have the advantage of eggs. So, and the babies start out much smaller anyway, so you can realistically create something that's going to be functional for... They use crocodile eggs in Jurassic Park. Crocodile embryos, excuse me, in Jurassic Park as well. So there's modern equivalents. What do you do with Kong if you're going to clone him?
Good question.
I guess in theory, maybe Kong would start off as a baby, or you could engineer him to, so you could birth him from an actual gorilla. It would probably still kill the gorilla, though. Because what it would also depend on is what version of Kong we're doing. 76 is not really a straight-up gorilla. He's more of a gorilla than 33. And this one, I would say.
In the face, but he's got that extremely upright posture.
That Sasquatch build, yeah.
Yeah, more so than any other Kong until now. Like, the only two Kongs that stand quite as straight up as that are 76 and Skull Island.
Well, then you have King Kong versus Godzilla.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I was just talking about American versions. Because even 33...
33 gets down on all fours a couple of times.
Exactly. He kind of alternates between the two.
And he has that, that arms are longer than his legs, like, gait.
Yeah. Which is the same thing that happens in both of these animated series that we've watched. As well as, in 05, yeah.
You see the Kong in 33, like, pull himself along the jungle, like by the trees? You know, each Kong is adapted to their island. I loved this joke when I was a kid, where Tan goes, "Oh, I don't trust the professor. I think he's up to some shady shit. He's making my left foot itch. You know that means trouble." And then they look up and see that Kong is also itching his left foot, and I'm like, and he's like, check it out, dude. And I love that. Oh, big surprise! Yeah, they were the same person. You realized that, right? You pegged that immediately, right?
Yeah, it also kind of reminds me of the third act twist from the 90s Mighty Joe Young.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Monster!
He bit off my thumb and trigger finger! And this guy's like, he blew up my hand.
This was probably also slightly inspired by Mighty Joe Young in that sense.
It's also oddly similar to the bad guy from that awful Netflix show. oh, he put me in an explosion. I'm like, no, you put yourself in that fucking explosion. I just realized that kid's villain motivation is basically Doctor Doom. Like, I was in an explosion. That's totally my fault, but I'm blaming it on this guy.
Right.
Or I'm angry. I'm gonna build robots and take over.
Right.
The
Yeah,
world.
he is kind of Doctor Doom. I always said he was like their relationship was very Loki and Thor. Like that whole show is a mishmash of different like modern stuff, like Planet of the Apes, Jurassic World, and then a little bit of like Thor and Loki, because of the relationship between the brothers. One of them's evil, one of them's not. One of them wears red, one of them wears green.
A little bit of Transformers: Age of Extinction aesthetics with the robot dinosaurs.
Yeah. I have another pitch for a Kong. It would work better as an anime type of thing. So you could still do it as a cloning thing, but what if somebody, like, you do it like a Hellsing, but with King Kong, where there's a military organization that uses Kong as a weapon against other monsters and ultra-terrorist Red Bamboo-esque organizations. I would say the Kong would have to be more Toho Kong-esque or more Skull Island Kong, or maybe even more this one, where he's like, massive and bipedal largely. But I think that would be pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. Another just super easy way to do a Kong show would be have something of value on the island, which this show kind of does with its fucking magic rocks. It wouldn't have to be magic rocks. They could do anything, really. Put something of value on the island that people from the outside world want to take, and then just every episode, Kong would be defending his turf,
You could also advance the version I put forward by getting to that point where, like, the cloned Kong realizes that he has a calling on his island. He should go back there, so he leaves the military and he has to fight them off later.
So Clayton just turned himself into a giant saber-toothed tiger. That's a little different from a giant chameleon. But,
so remember that the cyber link that Jason's wearing on his ear allows him to genetically merge with Kong. The villain is able to do the same thing with other animals.
But it's different. It's like Kong's cyberlink is like Namekian fusion, and everybody else's is Pataran fusion.
Yeah,
for some reason.
Well, they need monsters for Kong to fight, and that's how they get them. There's no genetic mutants in this show. There's only, like, fusion hybrids.
You imagine if this fucked up and Kong went inside his head, and so it was just like a human, and he's like, this is useless.
They do that in the show.
They do that?
Yeah, that's how they travel. That's how Kong travels when they go on a plane or whatever.
Oh, I see.
It's actually kind of cool.
I guess that's another convenience of the idea.
Yeah, because it's like otherwise they have to have him be on a raft every time, or he has to swim alongside the boat like in the other cartoon. So yeah, I want to know what happened to the other people on the island. Why is there only one of her? Like, it makes sense that we have the one Kong because he's the clone.
Yeah, I wish that they had more Skull Islanders, and you wouldn't even have to show them very often. They could just be off in a village somewhere doing their own thing.
Because they would probably be like, let's stay away from all the action.
And then you would just have this one chick be the one who's the designated, monster fighter or whatever, and she would be going around on the adventures.
She's Kong Shaman. She's the one who guides him or whatever.
Yeah, like a fucking Mothra fairy and shit.
All right, kids, that is it for the first episode. So why don't we move on to the next one without any further ado? The Return, Part 2.
What else you could do if you did the Kong cloning thing? Just have him fight other Kong clones that have been weaponized or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not bad. I think ultimately what you do with that is, if somebody's going to clone Kong and you have the money to do it, they're probably doing it for the reasons of using it as a weapon, because he is, like, a really good... Like, if you're going to drop a bomb, don't drop a bomb. Drop a Kong. Like, that's what you do. Because you can contain a Kong, and you just drop him directly on the enemies, and he can just blow through them, and then you can recapture him later and reuse him, as opposed to a bomb, which is one and done. He's the best solution to nuclear weapons.
And as long as your enemy doesn't have biplanes, he'll really fuck them up real bad.
Well, but again, that's why you need like a Skull Island Kong or a King Kong Escapes or a King Kong versus Godzilla Kong, you know? Maybe you don't have to go that crazy. But one that's bigger and largely resistant to most caliber bullets. Like, it would take, like, a missile or a bomb to hit him head on to really kill him, you know?
Even then, though, I mean, Sam Jackson could have killed him if he hadn't.
He totally could have, yeah. But Kong he's still pretty resistant to gunfire in that. Like, the machine guns don't do shit to him.
If only Sam Jackson had resisted the urge to drop that one-liner, he could have. Man.
But then he would have never been able to fight Godzilla.
Who, Sam Jackson or King Kong?
King Kong. Let's press play for the return.
I'd almost rather have Godzilla versus Colonel Packard. That sounds awesome.
Let's press play for the return part 2 in 3, 2, 1, play. And we have to sit through the intro again.
Godzilla, the man is God.
I like this intro so much more than the 60s one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The intro for Godzilla the series is also really good.
It's better than King Kong, you know the name.
The Assumptions, yeah. And they don't presume, and they knew that they were gonna fuck up the scale in this show, so they don't even pretend to give us any sense of that.
It would have been cool if we could have gotten a crossover between this Kong and the cartoon Zilla.
Yeah, that would have been really sweet.
Although scale-wise, he would just step on this Kong. Like,
well, I don't know, how big is Zilla? Zilla's like probably, and the one in the show is bigger than the one in the movie.
Yeah,
because he's more upright.
He puts the god back in Godzilla. That Zilla.
Zilla Jr., as he's properly known.
Zilla the Second. The Return, Part 2. Maybe someone will actually return this time. What is the return referencing in the title?
The Return of Kong. Because he's been cloned.
Oh. I thought maybe it was referencing the kid, but I was like, how is he returning? He's never been to this island before.
The kid? No, Jason's been on the island before. He grew up there, partially. She's sort of like Charlie from Charlie's Angels. She gives them orders, but she never does anything herself. She's a massive misanthropic pussy.
Too bad you get to see her face. That was always the cool thing about Charlie from Charlie's Angels. You never knew what he looked like.
Yeah. Did they show him in, like, the movies? Like the Charlie's Angel movies?
I don't think so. I'm not as familiar with those as I am the show. But
I'm not familiar with either version.
He's always super mysterious in the show. Like, there's this character, I forget his name, who's like his like helper, and he's the one who actually physically interacts with the angels and like goes along with them on their missions and stuff. He's kind of like their manager. But Charlie only ever like calls in over the phone. You never get to see him. He's like, but he has like this huge reputation. Like he's some sort of a super spy. He's like he strikes me as like a James Bond type who retired and then created a team of sexy women to do his dirty work.
Right. Because the CIA agent, once they retire, they're like, I can't do this anymore because nobody's gonna back me up if I fuck up.
Trying to assemble a team of sexy women to do this.
Right.
And somebody's like, why does it have to be a team of sexy women?
Why not?
Hey. It's a little disturbing how Kong doesn't have a neck in this show.
Yeah. Again, I think that they thought in the grander scheme of it he would look more like a gorilla, but ultimately just because they gave him the small 33 Kong head. That's the thing. He doesn't have the big dome gorilla head like 76.
Yeah.
That's what he's missing. Yeah, he's missing that because they did the rest of him to look like a gorilla. You have to scale down the size of the arms and scale up the size of the legs if you're going to do this. But then he doesn't look so much like King Kong as he does like a fucking Sasquatch.
Yeah. It's really weird though. Like, I mean, we talked about this. In that CG movie, when you get a glimpse of the original Kong from 33, it actually looks like King Kong.
Yeah, well, yeah, that I think that was what they wanted people to get the impression of is like, oh no, this is the proper like classic recipe King Kong. What we have in the show is just like a weird hybrid. There's a reason they don't call this version King Kong. I mean, copyright being one of them, but the other one being that he's not really deserving of that title. He's a clone.
Which is why they can't use the theme song from the 60s.
Exactly right. That's the only reason.
They could have just changed the lyrics, you know, Kong the Animated Series. Hey Kong, I think your Bluetooth is ringing.
You can't get off the Bluetooth, man. Come on, you're on your own island now. This is not a place to be talking about your investments, you know?
Whoa, this show invented the Bluetooth. Holy shit.
Oh my god.
Kidding.
Pachylocephalosaurus! Carnivore? No, herbivore.
One of my favorite moments from Lost World.
You see that?
Also one of my favorite dinosaurs. Very underrated, the Pachycephalosaurus.
See, the spine lines up with the back of the head and makes a perfect ramming mechanism.
They used one in a short story once. It was very gratifying. This Pachycephalosaurus isn't lining the skull up with the spine correctly. He's gonna break his head.
Right.
Poor form. 2 out of 10 would not bang.
That's like a giant one. Were they that big?
Pachycephalosaur? I
don't think they were.
I don't think. I mean, big by our standards, sure, but that's like T-Rex size.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think they ever got that. I was about to say it would be cool if you did like a kaiju version of one.
You know, I guess it could be a similar idea to like in '05. Maybe this is not technically a Pachycephalosaurus. Maybe it's a genetic descendant of the Pachycephalosaurus.
For some reason, they get bigger and the T-Rexes get smaller.
Pretty sure the few times that I remember seeing episodes of this on TV, it was like around the time that '05 came out, and I think they were like, "Hey, we've got a cartoon we could air. Just capitalize on this recent movie."
I was gonna say the way I was introduced to this show was through Jetix, who aired it around the time the '05 movie came out in preparation and to capitalize on it. And I saw every episode of it, and then that's also when they put out the King of Atlantis movie, and then a couple years later they put out that bad CG movie. So this show had legs, despite the fact that it was canceled due to poor ratings and it wasn't nearly as popular as Godzilla the series was, although it had about the same amount of episodes. Godzilla the series also didn't last very long. Like the popularity of that movie and that show were only so far-reaching. Godzilla 98 was why monster movies kind of died after that 98-99 period, because people were like, oh, nobody likes these. Because we don't know how to do them right now.
Yeah. You know what I would like to revisit?
Mighty Joe Young is the best of those in that period. If we're not counting like Spielberg's Jurassic Park movies, which they're not really monster movies necessarily.
It is an incredibly good movie. I was so shocked how well that held up when I revisited it a few years ago. Like I wasn't expecting it to be bad by any means. My memories of it were enough that I knew I was going to enjoy it.
Because it doesn't matter that it's a remake, but it's a very effective remake.
Yeah, I mean it's just so good, and Charlize Theron and Bill Paxton, everybody in it.
Bill Paxton, man, oh.
Everybody in it is on their A game, and then the special effects in that, they look better than Kong did in '05. Because it's all practical, and it's amazing looking. Well, I'm sure there's some CG, but
yeah, no, some of it doesn't look as good as Kong in '05, but by and large, the puppetry is certainly superior to the CGI in that movie.
It's just fantastic. It's a really great movie. You know what I would like to revisit and see if it holds up, because I have vague memories. Do you remember the Men in Black animated series?
Yeah, I do remember that. Which
I want to know if
I don't think is a sequel to the movies. I think it's like an amalgamation of the movie with the comic, the original comic, because Jay has a different design. All the characters have a different design. Maybe it is. Maybe it's like the first movie happened pretty much as it happened, but the world is more like the comic book world. Was the idea in that show?
Possibly, yeah. I'd like to know. I'd like to know how that holds up. I'd like to know how the Mummy cartoon holds up.
The Mummy cartoon probably does not hold up as well as the Men in Black cartoon, because the Men in Black cartoon was made by the same people who made Godzilla the series. I think the people who made the Mummy cartoon made this.
Oh.
Which is not like, oh my god, it's terrible, but the Mummy cartoon is definitely worse than this. Because the conceit as to why that is a thing is so much less believable than this. That show, though, is not... Okay, it came out at the same time as The Mummy Returns, but because The Mummy Returns has the same plot as it, they take place in different universes.
The good thing about the Mummy cartoon as opposed to this one, though, is there isn't as much complicated setup that needs to be done. Like, by the nature of who the villain is, and I think in that show he was after, like, some sort of magical scroll or something.
Well, Emotep was just being a dickhead like he always is. I just don't remember, like, why he was resurrected again.
Yeah,
like, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, they were on a dig like they usually are, and something just happened so that Emotep could come back. Now, the one thing that was good about that show that I remember is I remember liking the new design for Emotep that they gave him, because he didn't look like he did in the movies. But whenever he went into monster mode, I always liked the design.
Actually, you know what I should revisit? I friggin' loved the Jackie Chan Adventures. That show.
Didn't Jackie Chan not voice himself?
I don't remember. I just remember there was a villain that was like a dragon statue that was like possessed by like some sort of ancient demon or something, and then at the end of the series, when it collected all the magic talismans, it actually turned into a dragon person.
Well, that's helpful.
But mostly I just remember the grandfather character, who was like my favorite thing.
What do you think of the animation in this show so far?
It's pretty good. It's leagues above the last one.
It's not. It's a good style as well. Like I'm not crazy about the Kong design like you are, but all of the dinosaur designs are really good.
Yeah, it's vaguely the same animation style as the Godzilla series.
No, I disagree. I think it's distinctly different, and I think that's a good thing. It's more cartoony, more traditionally kind of cartoony, more rounded edges. It's not as detailed. It's more smooth looking.
They both just feel very of the period to me.
Do you think that the design of Kong in the Mighty Kong is better, and if they threw it into this would be better?
I actually don't remember what he looked like in the Mighty Kong. That movie, I've blocked it out.
I think it depended on the shot, sort of, but design-wise, I do think that he looks more kind of traditionally King Kong-y in that movie.
Oh yeah, you know what? I'm looking back at some Google images now. That's a pretty good Kong design. I think the face needs some work.
He's got those big, hogged, like, baboon teeth, which is not... that's not King Kong.
Yeah, the face looks a little Mighty Peking Man. But if you do some work on this face, I think it could be probably the perfect animated design, because the body looks pretty spot on here.
He's got those big disc plate tits, though, that King Kong vs. Godzilla had. Doesn't he? Or does he have, like, a big chest?
I'm from the stills I'm finding, I'm seeing just a big gorilla chest.
Okay,
Wait, no. I see what you're saying. They are kind of round looking. I found one. Yeah, they are kind of round.
Which is one of the worst things about King Kong vs. Godzilla, is those pancake boobs. See, look, that's what I was telling you before. Kong goes into Jason so that way they can ride on the pterodactyl.
Oh my.
There is no way that he should be able to survive that. The only way that I can, like, explain it is that he is half human, Kong. So I guess that's why this kind of works, but otherwise, man, like, he would die. Like, the stress of having a giant monster inside of you, both figuratively and literally, would rip you apart.
Oh my.
My indeed.
You know, I'm looking at Toho Kong now. Not only are those tits terrible, they also look kind of saggy. I think he needs a bra.
Look at him in the water. Like, it's even worse. Like, his when they're all wrinkly and soggy. This chick just Batmaned him. That's awesome.
I kind of like that moment in the new Justice League trailer. Damn it, DC, cutting good trailers and then disappointing me with your movies. But that moment where all the superheroes do the whole disappearing thing except for Flash.
Yeah, that was cool. That movie just, like, I don't need a 4-minute trailer. Like, that's the thing.
I'm loving what I'm seeing so far of J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon, though.
Yeah, he looks spot on.
It's going to be a good fit, I think.
Oh, this is cool. This giant
bear person?
Yeah, this is like a giant cave bear. No, that's cool. That's just a bear right now. He's about to become a bear person.
Man, bear, pig.
That's pretty cool, though. We're like a giant prehistoric cave bear.
Yeah, that's something you don't hear every now and then. Or see every now and then. Very often. That's what I'm trying to say. Fuck.
Yeah, you just like went on like a mumbling rant right there. I didn't know what you were fucking saying, but I got you in the end.
I kind of need a movie version of this now where the bad guy is played by Nick Cage. Because as we all know, you don't put a bear in a cage. You put Cage in a bear.
See, I feel like the next King Kong movie will ultimately have to be kind of a remake of King Kong Escapes. And if they do that, they need like a really like a terroristy human bad guy to come and kidnap Kong from Skull Island.
God, I don't think.
And
they
I
would.
feel like they should do Nicolas Cage as like a Doctor Who / De La Porta from this show kind of character.
Can you imagine? I'm Doctor Who.
No, well, I feel like you get the rights to the character from this show and you call him De La Porta, but you give him like a lot of the flourishes of Doctor Who.
I think you call him Castor Troy.
Yeah, you make him kind of Castor Troy. That would be very cool. I wish Vought Roberts would come back for that, because that would be awesome.
I want to take King Kong's face off. Imagine if they could get the... I don't think they ever would, practically. But imagine if they could get the rights to Mechanic Kong.
See, I think they're already in bed with Toho getting fucking Ghidorah and Mothra and Rodan, so they got Kong. They might as well.
I don't think Toho even has the rights to Mechanic Kong, do they? Wouldn't they have to go to Rankin Bass for that?
That's a good... Well, I think once you have the rights to Kong, and you have Toho's approval, I think it's fine. Because the design... Toho has the rights to that design. They can sell toys of him.
Might have to just change the name slightly. Call it Mecha Kong or Robo Kong. Or
I think Mechanic Kong as a name might have to go. I think Cyber Kong is a better name. Cybo Kong or whatever. Robo Kong. Robo Kong is probably better.
Kong Borg. Something. I don't know. Fuck it. Just throw a word that means machine in with Kong, and then that'll do it.
I mean, Mecha Kong is fine.
Imagine if they got the rights to Donkey Kong.
So I feel like if you remake King Kong Escapes before you do Godzilla 3 and you inevitably do Mecha Godzilla, that would be cool, because they did Mechanic Kong first in the original series.
True.
I like the fights so far as well. The fight with the Lion Man and the fight with the Cave Man, like the Cave Bear Man, like that's cool shit.
If they did a sequel to Kong Skull Island and kind of just turned the whole franchise into an adaptation of the 60s show, would you be pissed? Or...
I don't want Kong globetrotting, because that's not what he's for in this universe. He's supposed to be on that island making sure that ecosystem is functioning properly.
I mean, sure, right now that's the status quo, but who knows how things will be looking.
It might be interesting if you kill the island and let him live. Like, that's kind of interesting.
Like you nuke it?
Well, I'm interested to know if my theories about Godzilla versus Kong are wrong and they don't take him off the island, and in fact, the climax is on Skull Island, and Godzilla somehow ends up destroying it. or is involved in destroying it.
Imagine if they gave legendary Goji like the atomic pulse power, and he just winds up frying the whole island.
Because I think the only monster they could come up with for them to team up with might be something living under Skull Island, like some insane skull crawler that we haven't seen. Like, because there's that fossil of that one that's as big as the island. Do you remember that piece of promo material from like a year or so back?
Right. Oh, I always got the feeling that was exaggerated for the purposes of...
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be that big, but something to that effect.
Or they could do some sort of an adaptation of that big thing from that book you're always talking about. What was that thing called?
Gaw?
Gaw.
I mean, Gaw was that book's version of Godzilla, though, is the thing. And as it is, the Skullcrawlers, if you read the backstory, they're supposed to be an ancestral offshoot of Godzilla's kind. Because they're underground, nuclear-powered reptiles. I don't know if they're supposed to be nuclear, but all of the animals on the new Skull Island are supposed to be like the heat of the environment is what makes them so big. They explain that in all the additional material.
I don't know. The skull crawlers do seem to be eating a lot of meat. I don't think they're subsisting on nuclear energy.
Well, I don't think that would be exclusive. So yeah, maybe it's just the heat. Maybe they don't dig down deep enough to get the nuclear energy that Godzilla is getting at the bottom of the ocean. And when he eats, horny monsters.
It might just be a heat thing, because reptiles like hot temperatures. I mean, but the dominant form of life.
I would like to see Godzilla on Skull Island, though. That would be kind of cool.
That's why the dominant form of life in a desert tends to be reptilian, because
and insect and arachnids.
Yeah, anything that can survive in that fucking heat and lack of water.
I think we're about to get the build-up for the other... Oh, no. I think this is just further setup for Dale Porter, who survived whatever the hell happened. I think he got thrown off a cliff. So there is another bad guy in this show. I forget his name. He is a primordial devil that ancient Kongs fought off in the past, and it is Kong's destiny to fight him off in the future. And I believe he teams up with De La Porta in the last episode, so I think that's what we're about to watch. So why don't we get to that now?
So Apocalypse, then.
Yes, Apocalypse is the episode we're watching. Excuse me. So get to that one, folks, and get to 000, and then we'll be ready to go. So this is the one that wraps up the whole mythological Kong story. He fulfills his destiny and brings balance to the Force and all that. So that's why we're going to watch this one. The 13th Stone looks like it takes place before this one. So I don't know why it's shown after. But I skipped to the end of it. It sets up the fight that's in this episode.
I think it's possible that the site just has them out of order.
Yeah, that must be it, because like I said, I skipped to the end, and the end of that episode is like, oh my god, Kong's gonna have to fight the devil, which is what I see happening in this one. So, we'll have to see for ourselves. So Dylan, are you ready to go?
I believe I am.
Alright, everybody, so for Kong, the animated series, Apocalypse, the finale, putting together the entire story that happens in the middle in our heads, let's press play in 3, 2, 1, play. Are there any dangling plot threads from the first episode that you want me to clear up before we get into what is ostensibly and supposed to be the finale?
No, I didn't feel like there really was that much dangling after the first episode, honestly. It was just
it was pretty self-contained, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But all of that mythological Kong stuff doesn't get introduced until a couple episodes in, where he's all like, oh god, I have to stop the devil, that's crazy. I'm just a big monkey. That shouldn't be my responsibility.
Well, I'm half big monkey.
Yeah, I'm half human. Why don't they get a full-blooded big monkey to do this? Of the two, and I'm not talking personal preference, I'm talking sensibility, Godzilla or Kong, who makes more sense as having a regular animated series? It's Godzilla, right? His status, his status quo and universe befits that better, I think.
Godzilla certainly has a bigger penis. No, a bigger...
I mean, I would imagine so, based on the fact that he's bigger in most versions, but we don't know how his... He might not even have a penis. He might have a cloaca. Or a hemi-penis, like a snake.
We also know how those great apes are hung.
Not well.
Not as impressive as you might think. No, no, what I meant to say is he certainly has a bigger scope, a bigger sandbox to play with.
Oh, by the way, the devil has like a harpy henchman.
Well, that's good to know.
So, here's something I should ask. Are you okay with like demons and that kind of mythology based into Skull Island? It's more of like Hades and like that kind of stuff though than it is like, Catholic demonology, It's more like tribal based,
Yeah. I'm okay with it. I would rather it be, something that like the Skull Islanders like interpret as a demon, kind of like how they set up the Skull Crawlers in the new movie.
Yes.
But I'm okay with it, especially in this really fucking weird version of the universe where there are like snake people in Atlantis and
I don't know why
like
they still can't just be like crazy whacked out monsters though. I don't know why they have to be actual demons. Like we're gonna see it. The devil is just gonna be a big snake who can shoot fire.
I mean, that certainly jives with certain interpretations of the devil. The problem with the devil is that there are so many different versions.
Oh, there's French guy teaming up with the devil.
Imagine if it was Nick Cage.
This is like when Lex Luthor teamed up with General Zod in Superman 2. Like, ultimately, what he's doing is bad for the entire planet. So he's a traitor and idiot in that sense.
Yeah.
But he thinks it's going to benefit him personally.
They also do a similar thing in Teen Titans where Slade ends up teaming up with Trigon. But that's more of a, hey, the Teen Titans killed me and I've been offered to come back from the dead if I work for this guy situation. So it made a little bit more sense.
But he didn't really feel like he had a choice. There's the devil. What do you think of the devil?
And he came back with like really cool fire powers too, so that was cool. Well, that's certainly a devil.
Demonic-like, certainly.
It strikes me more as like a Hawaiian like volcano god, though.
Yeah, it does. Are you okay with that aesthetic?
Yeah,
I think that still works with King Kong. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's got the whole Pacific Island thing going for it.
Do you feel lost?
No, I mean, I think you've told me enough. There's a demon on the island, so there he is. That's okay.
How are they not dead?
Plot armor?
Good point. They should be extra dead. That would not save them. Like they would just hit his flat hand, and every bone in their body would break.
Bill, I'm only going to say it one more time. Plot armor.
It bothers me though. They should all be dead.
Plot armor is the most powerful substance in the universe. I always appreciated in Lord of the Rings they actually explained their plot armor at a certain point, because there's this scene where you're like super sure Frodo's dead, but there was this like super hard substance that they set up earlier in the story, and it turns out that he was wearing a vest made out of it, and I was like, aha!
So literal plot armor. Armor informed by the plot. The animation is a lot worse in this episode than the first two. There's a lot of characters standing around barely moving their mouths. They're all fighting like they were in the first movie that we watched. I really hope they're not going to start singing. I don't think they do.
Please no singing. Please no singing. Those were just bad and poorly written and poorly made and poorly sung. Just poorly everything. They were just generally pretty poor.
Mm.
The one saving grace of that CG movie was that there were little to none of those.
Of all of the animated kids shows, that's a pretty cool looking monster. I forgot about that thing.
You know what might make for a pretty fun animated series, actually? You
What?
wanted to set something in the new Monsterverse?
What?
Have a show of Marlowe and Gunpei just surviving on the island.
That would be pretty cool. I would almost prefer if that was like a primetime like sitcom cartoon. Where it's like sort of American Dad-esque.
You could do it two ways. You could do it like that, or you could do it like as like a super like ultra-violent anime.
Okay, never mind. If we're gonna do it like anyway, that would be the way I would want it.
But you still have the humor in it from Marlowe.
Yeah, totally. That would be fucking awesome.
Although he wouldn't be as fucking crazy as he is when we meet up with him in the 70s.
He would probably be more of a straight man, yeah.
Yeah, I think you develop him into that as the series goes on.
Totally.
God, this is a great idea.
Well, the thing is, I think what we're describing is part of what that Kong prequel comic series that they've just recently put out the second issue of is about. I haven't read the second issue. I only read the first one.
I thought that was about like Kong's parents or something.
The first issue is a sequel to the movie. They haven't even gone into the past yet.
Weird.
It's set in 1999, so it's set even before Godzilla 2014.
Oh, you could even have like a whole like character development over the first season of like Marlowe and Gunpei learning to trust each other. The show that needs to happen.
I really want to see a King Kong anime now that I think about it. Like a violent one where we can get like a properly designed Kong doing violent stuff with actual proper fighting, where he's not just going to be grappling with other monsters, where he can actually kill them and rip them apart.
The problem is, and this is weird to say, I don't trust Japan to do it right now. Look, we're finally getting a Godzilla anime, and look, it's just this fucking modern CG anime bullshit. If we were going to
I want it like Castlevania. So I wish Netflix, who have the rights to King Kong right now, would do like a Castlevania-type show, but with King Kong.
Right, we need some American person who's a fan of the franchise to do an anime-inspired like show, and like a Castlevania or you know what Nickelodeon did with Avatar, you know, that thing, just co-opting that animation style and doing it right, you know.
At the end of the day, you do a show where you trust the audience. Despite the animation being of lower quality, the fights are still pretty entertaining, and I think that's why I liked this show so much when I was a kid. It's got good action in it.
Did they explain in the movie, was Gunpei killed by a skullcrawler? I don't remember.
Yes, he was.
Okay, I wasn't sure if
because
actually
Brie Larson is like, didn't Kong kill your friend? He's like, no, one of them did. Because I guess the assumption that we're supposed to make is that Kong crushed at least Gunpei in that initial scene where he comes across, or at least a Kong comes across them.
Right. Also, they haven't even met the skullcrawler at that point, so the characters are working under the assumption that Kong is the worst thing on the island.
Right. Which he sort of is. And having watched that movie again a few days ago, that helicopter scene, like, there is not an action sequence in that movie that tops that helicopter scene. Like, my God.
No, I think they have a close second in that last fight. I love that last fight.
It is a good last fight, and the fight with between the soldiers and Kong is good, and the Mother Longlegs scene is good, and the fight with the Skullcrawler is good, but that helicopter scene is incredible. Like, that is the best giant monster action sequence in a long time. In anything.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like the movie like doubled down. We have the best monster versus human scene in the helicopter, and then we have the best monster on monster scene in a long time with that last fight. So you get the best of both worlds.
Yes. There. I am glad that we got to see like a better monster brawl than in Godzilla 2014, where we got to see it all, you know.
Yeah.
in the daylight.
The best shit in the fight from 2014, though, is when Godzilla's having to fight both of them at once, and they're kind of overpowering him just because of there being two of them.
It's hard for me to even remember, like, when that was happening, though. Because it's so disconnected and disjointed. Like, I remember every hit of the Skullcrawler fight, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the Godzilla 2014 fight, I have to go, like, okay, so I remember Godzilla got thrown through a building at one point. I remember the tail swipe. Like, it's more like specific moves that I remember, you know? Why did he fall over? Oh, they're sacrificing him. Oh, that's cool.
The Harpy lady, not to be confused with the Yu-Gi-Oh monster of the same name, is siphoning his life force to resurrect Satan. I mean, Kairos. Huh?
Well, I think it's to let him out of the temple. Like, that's what he can't do. He can't escape the temple. Those things look like they belong in a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. I think Gamera makes more sense as having his own weekly show than Godzilla or Kong does.
Yeah, and you could also go away with this kind of mythological bullshit a lot easier in Gamera if you just explain everything away as Atlantean, you know?
Right. Also, I think obviously like a kid's animated series style makes more sense with Gamera.
Gamera would also be really cool to have as like an ultra-violent like anime because the
yeah,
movies,
well, of course. Every
because the
giant monster character would be nice to have that medium for.
But I feel like it's especially apt for Gamera because the fight in those movies has always been like super bloody and shit. And then you've got like the Gauss that like run around eating people. Like you could have like great Attack on Titan-esque scenes of these Gauss like flying around and just like swiping by and biting somebody's head off or something. You know what I mean? Like it's just there's so much potential there. This main character kind of reminds me of Sonic the Hedgehog, and that's not a good thing. Should have woke me up earlier, bro. Gotta go fast.
Kong kind of looks like Sonic in he's blue, you know?
Come on, Kong, we gotta stop Dr. Eggman. Or whatever the fuck he's called now.
I do like the design of the Hawaiian tiki monster. I like the rock armor and the snake tail, all based around like lava. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's a bit less Hawaiian looking in form, actually.
He looks a little bit... the color scheme makes him look a little bit too much like that big snake from Godzilla the series, though.
You know what it is? It's because he's in a physical form now, whereas before he was like this weird sort of elemental thing.
Formed out of the lava, yeah. This show, like I said, it's pretty good. Like for what it is and for what it's supposed to be, I think it holds up pretty solidly. The animation again it doesn't hold up throughout the entire series. Like this is not nearly as good as it was in the first episode, but it's still pretty. It's still of enough of a good quality that, again, for a kid, it would still be pretty good.
Yeah. You know what? I think I'd rate it at a solid Aladdin: Return of Jafar, and that's
that is a pretty fair rating, I would say. I love how they tied him up after he had his life stolen.
Do you remember Return of Jafar?
I've never seen that one. I've seen The King of Thieves.
Of all those terrible straight-to-video Disney sequels, Return of Jafar was always my favorite.
Why? Like, how does he come back? Didn't he get turned into a genie and locked in a lamp?
He did. So there's this villain from the animated series, this little fucking Middle Eastern guy who's always being a thieving motherfucker and getting into trouble. I don't remember his name. But there's this little villain. He's from the animated series, and he finds the lamp. And then Jafar basically manipulates him into helping him get revenge on Aladdin.
Who was like the ruler of the land at that point or something, right?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, the Sultan is still
Sultan.
Sultan.
You know, he's still like a street motherfucker, but he's like, he's also like married to the princess. He's like leading a weird double life, isn't he?
Well, he's still living. He's living in the palace now, and him and Jasmine are like totally a thing, even though they don't get married until the third movie. But he's just still true to his roots. That's all, you know.
He still dresses like a fucking street urchin, even though he's like royalty.
Yeah, basically.
I love that. I have respect for that. Well, he just threw that chick into lightning. That's an effective way to get rid of a bitch.
I would not be doing that.
She just went all Vegeta from the Boo Saga.
Second favorite horrible straight-to-video Disney sequel, Lion King 2.
Yeah, I like that one quite a bit as well. I would say Lion King 2 is probably my favorite. Then it's the Lion King 1.5, probably.
Lion King 2 is probably objectively better than Return of Jafar, but I just have like mad nostalgia for Return of Jafar.
I like the Lion King 1.5 probably more than the Lion King 2 now that I think about it.
Oh God, no.
You got your goddamn mind.
I mean, I like Lion King 1.5. I think it's very creative and it's a neat idea for a sequel. But Lion King 2 has got like all this great story going on. Like the bullshit Romeo and Juliet.
Where the hell did the other lions come from? That's what I never understood.
Well, the idea was they were followers of Scar who kind of got exiled after he got
Where
dethroned.
were they? It seemed like everybody hated him.
Well, you could say the same thing about the fucking the donkeys from War for the Planet of the Apes. Oh, I didn't see that red gorilla in Dawn. Where was Winter at? You know what I mean?
That's a good point. I never thought about that.
It's actually the exact same idea, really. I feel like they're ripping off Lion King 2, Simba's Pride.
Oh no! Now I will never be able to take those movies seriously ever again.
Now that I really think about it. There's even a character in the prequel novel who always considered himself a son of Koba. Like nobody knew who his father was. He used to tell people that that Koba was his dad, but that's
and Koba was like,
no. That's totally not true because Koba and his mom were not anywhere near each other when she got impregnated. That was before they all got intelligent. And Koba himself was always like, no, that ain't the kid is not my son. But this kid just still lives with this delusion that Koba was his dad, and so after Caesar kills Koba, he's like super pissed.
Right. Even though it was totally worth it. Is Caesar in the book a lot?
Yeah.
Okay. I should read it. I will, so we can talk about it. Somebody wants us to review the Dawn prequel novel as well, so maybe we should do that first.
Maybe I should go back and read that at some point.
Isn't it a different writer, though? So it might be shit.
No, I think it's the same guy. I think it's Greg Keyes.
Oh, okay. So then, yeah, it's probably worth it then. That was it. That, by the way, Dylan, that was it. They saved the day. Saving the day!
I gotta say, Apocalypse was a little anticlimactic, I'm not gonna lie. That probably should have been like an epic two-parter.
I have no idea what they did. I think I saw lightning and I saw lights, but I don't know what they did.
Like the title had great promise, you know, Apocalypse. It sounded like all my favorite episodes of the X-Men series, but no.
Kong's trying to put a dock back together with his bare hands. It's very Iron Giant when he tried to put that train track back together.
Oh god, there's a great movie.
Oh, by the way, random romantics interlude, because it's the last episode. That has to be a thing. Look at how creepy his grandmother looks. Ugh.
I should rewatch The Iron Giant. God, it's been years.
Yeah, it's been a while for me as well.
Years! Wonder if I still have my old VHS of that. Probably not.
She is so fucking on for his cock. It's fucking wild.
What is the Dawn prequel novel even called? Do you know?
The war one's called Revelations, right?
Yeah.
Then I have no idea what the Dawn one's called.
Called Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Sigma? Is it called Sigma?
Sigma? I don't know. Maybe it's in the About the Author section on my book. I will check.
You could just Google it.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Firestorm. Oh.
Should call it Firestar, Marvel crossover. That would have been cool.
Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
Da-na-na-na. Oh, Kong ruined their kiss. Isn't that funny?
That's a way better cartoon than this.
Yeah, probably.
You ever see the episode?
I don't know about way better. Do you remember the episode where Mailman Willie Lumpkin got an amulet from Doctor Doom and took over the world?
You remember the episode where the chameleon like captured a bunch of Marvel heroes and like Spider-Man and his amazing friends had to save them?
You remember the episode where Magneto took over a prison and Spider-Man for some reason was able to stop him, even though Spider-Man and Magneto are usually like Magneto thinks Spider-Man is a joke. Anyway,
First time I saw that show, I was like, this is like the Super Friends, but for Spider-Man. I love it.
And then I was like, oh my god, this came out like 20 years afterwards. That's so much less excusable. So, Kong, the animated series, what are your thoughts, D?
I think it's pretty solid from what I've seen. I mean, I have seen 3 out of 40 episodes. Not a great sample size. However, from what I have seen, it seems just all right. You know,
It's
not
just
as good.
just like Jesus, it's just all right with me.
Not as good, I would say, as the '90s Godzilla cartoon, but probably just as good / enjoyable as the old Godzilla cartoon. Whereas
I would say it's better than that.
well, it's good in a different way. This is more like you're enjoying it because it's got like an interesting story and like shit like that, and that's like, fucking, this is fucking awesome. You know what I mean?
Right.
Godzuki.
That's the best thing. I also think it's pretty solid. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. It'll always have a special place in my heart. But yeah, it's not as good as Godzilla the series, and that's ultimately its biggest sin. So yeah, it's not as good as Ghostbusters 2. I would say it's not worse though. It's probably just as good as Ghostbusters 2.
How would you compare it to the Ghostbusters animated series?
It's not nearly as good as the real Ghostbusters. I mean, I would say it's probably about as good as the Extreme Ghostbusters. So I would say that rating probably works. So I guess that's where we'll leave things off. So stick with us for the finale for this trilogy of Addendum of Kong commentaries when we finally do what you all fucking came here for. We're going to do a commentary on the Mighty Peking Man. No. Kong Skull Island 2017. Second entry in the Monsterverse. We're going to talk about it. Are you ready?
I am.
Well, we did it already, so good job. Until then.
Pretty hard not to be ready in that instance.
Until then, I am Bill Worster, a.k.a. Zazubaar.
And I'm Super DM64, off to watch episodes of Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
We're millionaires, boys. We'll share it with all of you.